This is Dr. Rodriguez, Psych 101, Chapter 10 looks at emotions and motivation. So what is motivation? Motivation is what energizes and directs our behavior. It's the why behind our behavior. Are we trying to meet certain unmet needs? Are we doing something because we just want to? And there's a whole bunch of different theories for why we get motivated to engage in certain behaviors, and we're going to look at those different theories in this chapter. So the different types of motivators, you have biological, so we are motivated to eat because we feel hungry. Other biological motivators are our sex drive, our sleep, so these biological mechanisms that motivate us to engage in certain behaviors. We have intrinsic motivators. Intrinsic, you see the in here, internal, it's something inside of you. Some intrinsic motivators are our desire for autonomy, our desire to make our own decisions, to have control over our own life. Mastery, intrinsic desire to master or to do good at things, to have purpose, to have meaning. To enjoy things. Those are all internal motivators for behaviors. Extrinsic is external motivators. So maybe rewards, like getting money or getting praise. Or punishment. So we do certain things so that we can avoid punishment. So we have different types of motivators, intrinsic and extrinsic. And there's going to be a video that you'll watch that looks at intrinsic and extrinsic motivators and having you think about if you have an internal locus of control, do you tend to do things because you're intrinsically motivated, because you enjoy it, because you want to do it? Or do you do things because you have an external locus of control? You're doing it to get rewarded with something outside of you, like money or to get a grade. So there's going to be different videos that will look at those intrinsic, extrinsic motivators, and it will talk about this over-justification effect that we tend to be less motivated to do things, we tend to be less intrinsically motivated to do things as there's more of an external motivator. As we get paid to do something, we enjoy it less, is what the over-justification effect says. And so the video will go over this creativity study. And you can also look at this Italian shoemaker story and scan the QR code, and it talks about how as somebody was paid to do something, is essentially using reverse psychology to get these people to stop doing something that this Italian shoemaker didn't want them to do. So he ended up rewarding them extrinsically, giving them an extrinsic reward so that they would stop doing it because they enjoyed it. It became less fun when they were paid to do it. So I think about my mom and how she loves to sew. She feels such a sense of accomplishment and enjoyment and creativity, all these intrinsic things. But then when she gets paid to do it, she feels she just has less enjoyment. That extrinsic motivator, that money, takes away the intrinsic motivation. So the video will look at this extrinsic and intrinsic motivators and help you to determine what can help you to become motivated in school, in your job, and to accomplish other types of goals. Now we're looking at the different theories of motivation, the different views on what motivates us. So there are psychologists that say that usually evolutionary psychologists who say that we are motivated to do things because we have this inborn instinct to survive. So babies have a sucking instinct. They will suck on a nipple so that they can get nutrients so that they can survive. Frogs produce sound to attract mates. Baby turtles swim towards the water so that they can get out of harm's way and also find food. So we have this internal drive to survive. That's the instinct theory. The need reduction is similar to instinct in a way, but it doesn't necessarily have to be an inborn. So a need produces a drive. So maybe we're thirsty. When we feel thirsty, we feel this lack of homeostasis, this unbalance, this disequilibrium. We just feel maybe antsy or hungry, or we just don't feel the best. So maybe we're thirsty or we're hungry. So this need for water, for food, gets us to get up, and it drives us to go seek out this unmet need, to fulfill this unmet need. So it gets us this need, this thirst, this hunger, gets us to get up and find something to drink or eat so that we can restore that balance, so we can restore our homeostasis, restore our equilibrium, our balance. So need reduction says that we have this unmet need and we are motivated to meet these unmet needs. Arousal theory of motivation says that we seek out a comfortable level of arousal. We don't want to be too bored and we don't want to be overstimulated. So we will engage in different behaviors because we're understimulated or we're overstimulated. The Yerkes-Dodson theory of motivation says that if it's a really easy task, then we need to be more aroused or we're going to get too bored. So maybe if it's a really easy test, the professor will make it timed, so there's that urgency. Or maybe this is where procrastination comes from too. I know I tend to sometimes procrastinate because it's an easy task and it just seems boring, but if I wait till the last minute, then there's like this excitement, there's this arousal, and it makes me more engaged in more wanting to do the task. On the other hand, if it's a difficult task, then we need less arousal. So if it's a difficult test, maybe not having it timed so that you don't have that, like, you don't feel that anxiety of that clock ticking. So the Yerkes-Dodson says that our central nervous system, so our heart pumping, our sweating, that we need the task to be not too hard, not too easy, and if the task is too easy, then we tend to want to put a little bit more arousal so we don't get too bored. Or if the task is too hard, we want to decrease the arousal so that our heart isn't pumping, so that we aren't sweating, so we aren't full of anxiety. That's what this graph shows. And then you have Bandura. Bandura, bang, 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 the Bobo doll. Remember Bandura? He did the Bobo doll test and experiment. And he also talks about self-efficacy, this I can attitude. So Bandura said that we engage in behaviors that we believe we can succeed at, and we avoid behaviors that we think that we will fail at. So if you think you can, you probably can. If you think you can't, well, that self-limiting and self-fulfilling belief might well stop you from doing it and being capable of doing it, even though you are capable of doing it. So I can, I will. So Bandura says that if we believe we can do it, then we will do it. And that kind of goes back to that Bobo doll. The kiddos that saw other people doing the beating up of the Bobo doll and didn't get in trouble, they're like, I can do it too then. And then they do it. So Bandura, self-efficacy, we are motivated to do things that we think that we can do, and we avoid things that we think we cannot. Need for achievement, affiliation, and power. So this theory says that we engage in certain behaviors because we want to feel a sense of achievement. We want to do our best. We want to have that good feeling inside of us that we're like, yeah, we did awesome at that. We also engage in behaviors because we have this need for affiliation, this need for belonging, this need to be popular. And we also have this need for power. We want a sense of authority in our life, and we'll engage in certain behaviors to get that need for power met. The incentive or expectancy value theory of motivation says that we do things because we're motivated. So, a person maybe will walk forward to go get that money. They're driven. They're motivated to get that reward, that incentive. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we've talked about Maslow already. He's a humanistic psychologist, and he said that we have all these different needs that motivate us to behave in a certain way, to act in a certain way. So if our physiological needs are not met, we cannot move up to we don't tend to focus on these higher needs of self-actualization or esteem or love and belonging. If we're hungry, if we're starving, if we're thirsty, if we haven't slept, those physiological needs are going to be the strongest motivators of our behavior. We're not going to be thinking too much about how can I become the best person that I want to be, and how can I find love when you are hungry or when you're fearful of your life. So Maslow said that we are motivated to engage in behaviors based on unmet needs, and we need to have the lower needs met before we can move up to the higher needs. Self-determination theory says that we have these three inborn needs: a sense of autonomy, this power over ourselves, this need for competence to be good at things, and this need for relatedness or connection. That sounds a lot like this need for achievement, affiliation, and power, huh? So these are just a lot of different theories that say that we are motivated to engage in behaviors because of this reason and this reason and this reason. No one theory is completely the right one, but when you take these all together, it helps us to understand the why behind our behaviors. Are we doing it because we have a need? Are we doing it because we want to? Are we doing it because we're bored? Are we doing it because we think we can? So, all right, so let's look at what motivates us to eat and to stop eating. So what motivates us to eat? Well, we feel hungry. What makes us feel hungry? You can have the physical aspects of hunger and the social aspects. So the physical aspects are when insulin, the hormone insulin, when glucose is low in our body, so the sugars in our body are low, then we start to feel hungry. So, when we eat, we have glucose in our body, we have these sugar, these calories, insulin gets released and kind of like gobbles up the sugar, neutralizes it. And when we no longer have that glucose in our body, that energy, we start to feel hungry. Our stomach starts to growl. Also, our brain. Our hypothalamus plays a role in this hungry feeling, the hindbrain. So you'll read about in the text the set point and the basal metabolic rate. And this is the idea that we have this inborn ideal weight that our body likes to stay at. There's some research supports it and some research that does not support it, but make sure that you read about that in the book. Then other factors that motivate us to feel hungry or to eat are social factors. So maybe what time is it? If it's getting around noon, our belly starts getting hungry, right? If we have a lot of stress in our life, some people like to eat because it makes them, feel better. You always see in movies when a woman's going through a breakup, she has this carton of ice cream. So social factors. Food appeal. If something looks good, smells good, even if we are not, our glucose is, even if our glucose is not low, we still get hungry. So there are physical and social factors related to hunger. We stop eating because leptin, this hormone, gets released and tells us, all right, you're full. But sometimes we continue eating even after this leptin is released because we're watching TV and we're not really paying attention, or maybe we're partying. The book goes over these different eating disorders, things that get in the way of our system regulating itself with this hunger and the stop eating. So binge eating disorders, when you eat a whole bunch, but you're not purging, you're not throwing up or exercising excessively. That's bulimia nervosa, is when you're purging. Anorexia nervosa is when you're restricting your calories. Underweight, obesity is overweight. BMI is a calculation of your weight and your height. So when your BMI is over 30, it's obesity.